When talking about parallel lines cut by a transversal, there are several angle relationships that we need to know. So we need to identify the angle relationship that's showing in this picture. And you can see that there's definitely extra information in this picture that we don't need. We have two parallel lines cut by this transversal, and that's the important part of this. This line right here doesn't really even matter. It doesn't affect the size of either of the angles that are indicated in the picture. So we want to kind of highlight the angles that we have. Now these two angles are on the same side of the transversal, which makes them consecutive. And they're on the inside of the two parallel lines, which makes them interior angles. And we know the consecutive interior angles add to 180. That's the relationship that we have here. So once I've determined the relationship between the two angles, I need to set up a equation that will represent this situation. So we know that they add to 180. So what I'm going to do is take the two measures, x plus 69, and I'm going to add them because that's what it says. They add to 180, x plus 129, and it's going to equal 180. Once the equation is set up, then it's not exactly hard to solve. What we want to do is combine our like terms. So we have two x's here, so x plus x is 2x. And then we have to add our numbers, 69 and 129, and that's going to make 198. So this is plus 198, and that's going to be equal to 180 degrees. Now once I have the equation set up and combined, I need to just solve the equation by simply subtracting 198 from both sides. Remember, you can only subtract on the same side, or you can only combine if they're on the same side of the equal sign. And this is negative 18, therefore x is negative 9. Now a lot of people freak out when you get that x is a negative number, and x can be a negative number. That is perfectly fine. What we don't want to have is a negative angle measure. Now the directions say to find the measure of the angle indicated in bold, which is this angle right here. I know it can be kind of hard to tell. So what I want to do is take the x and plug it in where the x is. So that says x plus 69, negative 9 plus 69 is equal to 60. So therefore this is a 60-degree angle. That would be my final answer. You can always check to make sure that your negative 9 makes sense. If you plug the negative 9 in for x in the other one, negative 9 plus 129 gets you 120. And then you can see that 120 and 60 are indeed supplementary, which is what we said that they were supposed to be. So that is a good indication that we did it right. Those aren't the only type of equations that you could have. You can notice this one, it has a lot of parallel lines and a couple transversals, but the key information is the top parallel line and the bottom parallel line, because those are on the angle, and they're cut by this transversal that kind of has a negative slope here. Now you can see once you highlight it that these angles right here, the x or 8x minus 2 and the 7x plus 7, are on opposite sides of the transversal, so they are alternate. And they're on the outside of the two parallel lines, so they are exterior. Now the only two possible relationships that could exist are they are either supplementary, like the one we just had, or they are congruent, which means they are equal. And you can kind of just look at these angles and tell that they are congruent, or you could even prove that they are congruent by saying that the bottom 7x plus 7 is equal to this angle right here because they are vertical, and then this angle is equal to the 8x minus 2 because they are corresponding, they're in the same spot. So since we know that alternate exterior angles are congruent or equal to each other, we can write an equation that represents that. We have the first angle, 8x minus 2, would be equal or congruent to the second angle, 7x plus 7. And what we need to do with that is just simply solve the equation by subtracting 7x from both sides to get x minus 2 is equal to 7, and then add 2 to both sides, and we get x is equal to a positive 9 in this case. Now, x is 9, but that's not what it's asking me for. It's asking me for the measure of the angle that is indicated in bold. And honestly, it doesn't really matter which angle I plug it into because the angles should be congruent anyway. So if I'm looking for this angle, which is the bold one, I can just plug in the 9. 8 times 9 minus 2. 8 times 9 is 72, minus 2 is 70, and so that is a 70-degree angle. If you don't believe that that does mean that they are equal, you can always plug the 9 into this, and 7 times x is 9 plus 7 is equal to 70 as well. So that just indicates that we did it right because we said they were supposed to be equal and that they are in fact equal.